All right, well, welcome. My name is Daryl Harris, the Director of the Student Money Management Center, and we are going to talk about student financial support. So this is page 13 in the handbook. We want students to do three things every year to maximize their ability to get as much money and funding and assistance with their funding as they can. And that is step one, to complete the FAFSA. Step two, apply for scholarships. This is to make sure they're getting all the free money they can. And step three, meet with a financial coach. This is what I am. There's about 5 or 6 financial coaches, and we meet with students and help them budget their money. So step one, FAFSA. Completing the FAFSA is what lets students know how much money they are going or can get in Pell Grants. It also lets them know what they can get in student loans, whether they can get subsidized loans or unsubsidized or a combination. Students, if the student hasn't yet filled out the FAFSA, they can still for this fall 2025 semester or even the spring 2026. The FAFSA is actually open all the way until June in case a student also attends in the summer. The 26-27 FAFSA will open up in October. So it's always best to apply early for the FAFSA in case you can get any supplemental grants. If you've had a change in circumstances, so a lot of people don't understand that if you have, for example, a divorce in the family or a death or something that has affected your income, because the FAFSA is always asking how much money the parents and the student made from 2 years ago. So if you've had a significant change in your income over the past 2 years, you can file an appeal. And that lets you lets our office possibly reassess how much money you're currently making, and that could open up the possibility to get additional Pell Grants. Another thing that happens is a lot of our students, they love to come to Utah State and they love to fall in love and get married. And when that happens, the student can update their FAFSA because that causes a large change in their life and an income change because they then are considered independent from their parents. And so then they can update the FAFSA and have it only look at the student's income from what the student made 2 years ago and their spouse from 2 years ago. So a lot of the times when students get married, they all of a sudden start qualifying for full Pell Grants. And that's $3,000, almost $3,700 per student per semester. So if you have if your student or the student gets married sometime in the fall or in the spring, please remind them or let them know to go in and update the current FAFSA saying that they are married. It will have a big change in their income and their ability to get Pell Grants. Another nice thing about filling out the FAFSA is it will open up the availability to have student loans. I like to recommend students do that just so that in case of an emergency, they've got a student loan that they could fall back on rather than a credit card, because student loans from the government, they're charging 6.4% interest this year, whereas most credit cards are charging 29% interest. So having had the FAFSA done lets the student very quickly, if needed in an emergency, borrow a student loan rather than put something on a credit card. All right, step two, we want students to apply for scholarships every year. USU loads our institutional scholarships, meaning the scholarships that Utah State offers. We'll start loading them in December for the next following year for 26-27. So we like to recommend all students to apply in December, take an hour a week in December and in January to go through our software, and I'll show that on our next slide, to answer just a lot of questions. And it does so much work for the student to help narrow down the scholarships that match to that student. When they go into Scholarship Universe, they'll also see all of the private scholarships that are available. Those get loaded on throughout the year as they come. And so your students can always hop on and apply for scholarships. So this is what our software looks like. It's called Scholarship Universe. Many years ago during COVID, we purchased some software and it allowed us to basically put all of our scholarships that USU offers in one location so that students don't have to go to different departments, to different websites. It's all in this one location. All of our scholarships are loaded here. And this dashboard will tell them many things. For example, this one is showing you that there are 2 scholarships available for Big Blue and from the institution, and 95 private ones that he could qualify for. It lets them know when there's a deadline. So a match scholarship expires tomorrow, 15 of them. So that would give the student incentive to apply today. When they first come into Scholarship Universe, we like to recommend students go into this question area and just answer a lot of questions. The more questions the student answers, the more it neatly narrows down to the scholarships that the student truly qualifies to apply for. It eliminates the ones that they really shouldn't be applying for because they probably won't get it because of the requirements of the scholarship. So the more time the student can take filling this out saves them so much time in applying for scholarships that they really could only get. All right, our scholarship office suggests a few things each year, and that is to review and update those questions every year. So every year in December, go back in and update any questions. If you've had a change, you can re-answer some questions. They also ask you to dedicate like at least an hour each week in December and January just to apply for all these new scholarships. Many of the students who come, they're giving these 4-year scholarships, deans, presidential, land grant, things like that. But you can get additional scholarships. And so that's why we want them to continue to apply each December and January. Another bit of advice is just to create some really good pre-written essays. Many scholarships will have an essay question asking the student about their leadership skills, for example. And so we recommend that you just write a really solid answer, a good solid essay, and then just reuse that essay for each scholarship that asks about your leadership skills. And then lastly, make sure you accept the awards by the deadlines. We have hard deadlines so that when we're offering a scholarship to a student, so that if the student doesn't want it or chooses not to accept it, we can offer it to another student. So we truly have those deadlines, and we want you to make sure you accept it. If you don't, we'll just cancel that offer and offer it to another student. All right, lastly, step 3, we want students to meet with a financial coach each year. So that's what I am. And the coaches, we sit down with students and we will talk about all of their income, what they have in savings, what they're going to earn throughout the next 12 months. We always like to try to do a 12-month budget so we really can analyze how much money they earn in the summer and the school year and how much they spend during the summer and the school year. And in doing so, we're able to look up what kind of scholarships they're getting, if they're getting Pell Grants. We talk about student loans, if they want them, if they want to avoid them. We just help the student meet the goals that they have. And then we like to offer just some ideas if the student hasn't thought of ways to improve their finances. So I'm going to walk you through an example. This spreadsheet that we use, it's actually about 3 times as long as this. And if the particular category doesn't apply, then we hide the row. So for example, this is a student who had $3,500. We're in the month of May, beginning to meet with this student. They'd saved up $3,500 all through the first 18 years of their life. And they had a summer job paying $8 an hour. And so we calculated that if they did that, they'd earn $1,163 in June, July, and then close to that in August. And then the student thought they'd come to school, USU, and get a job and maybe make $9 an hour. They had the Aggie Advantage grant, which is $1,000 over 2 semesters. So that's $500 each semester. At this point, the student was in the red. I mean, they were going to run out of money in August. They were going to be short about $1,200. And so for the whole school year, they were in the red, $8,000. So they already knew that they were going to have to take student loans. So we calculated in the student loans, the max student loans for that year. This particular student gave a 10% donation to their church. So we have a formula that takes that. We had their tuition, housing, the all-you-can-eat meal plan, car insurance. Their family was going to start asking them to pay their own car insurance and gas when they came to school. And down vacations, the student thought they'd maybe want a $400 spring break vacation. She was spending a little bit on clothing, about $100 a month, and then eating out and fun, etc. So at this point of the conversation, the student wasn't looking good. They were very concerned because they were maxing out their student loans and they were $8,000 going to be short for the whole year. So we started out by saying, okay, let's analyze your income and your expenses. What can we do to improve this situation? And this student had been working for a neighbor, earning $8 an hour. And so I told the student that was very kind of them to work for $8 an hour. But the reality is, here in Cache Valley, at least, the minimum wage is really closer to $12 an hour. So I said, what if we could bump up your income to stop working for your neighbor, go get a full-time job this summer. And if you're getting a full-time job, often you can get a better wage, so closer to 14 or 15. And then when you move to Logan, you could probably get a job at $12 an hour with an off-campus job. So I showed the student what that would look like, that one change. So now the student is $4,000 in the red by the end of the year. So that had a $4,000 effect by changing their income. The next thing we looked at is the meal plan and the student's housing. Half of the housing on campus has a full kitchen in the apartment, so you can do your own cooking. So it's generally cheaper to do your own cooking than it is to have someone else cook and prepare your meals and clean up after you. So I showed the student, what if we moved you into different housing and you did your own cooking? So different housing could be the $22.50, and then most of our students, on average, they spend about $200 a month on groceries. So that change where they wanted to live and to do their own cooking had another big effect. And so now the student is no longer in the red, but they are still borrowing the money for the school year. The next change we suggested was how much they spend a month on fun. This student was spending about $215 on clothing, eating out, snacks, and fun. So we showed them, what if they only spent $100 a month on fun? Again, that was great, saved a lot of money. Now they're $22.97 they'd have at the end of the year. Now, the student, when they originally came in, they said they wanted to avoid student loans. So the next thing we talked about is, if they really want to avoid student loans, leaving the car at home and not paying car insurance and gas would be the next best savings they could do. So if they were to do that, that would let them have $4,000 by the end of the year, which means they'd no longer have to max out their student loans. So instead of maxing them out, they'd really only need to borrow about $3,000. Now, we've trimmed up their spending about as much as the student wanted to trim. And if the student really wanted to avoid student loans, then the student would simply need to make more money. And so we looked at that, and to truly avoid this, if they didn't have any Pell Grants or assistance from parents or family members, they would really need to earn about $15 an hour. Now, everything would be fine now without taking out the student loans until December. They would be short that $1,789, but by March, sometime in March, they'd be back in the positive. So when a student faces a situation like that, we like to recommend the payment plan. What the payment plan does here in the spring, it spreads out the payments that the student owes for tuition and housing. It spreads it out over 4 semesters. So if the student were to do that, now they're capable of making the payments on time and still be in the positive by the end of the year. So this is just a really good example of what a financial coach is able to do, to sit down with a student, really analyze their income and their expenses, and help them see ways, things that they would need to do to change, so they know how much they need to earn and how much they can safely spend each month throughout the year if they want to achieve whatever goal. This student wanted to avoid student loans, and so that's what this student would need to do. All right, now some of the things we've learned from doing this, I've been doing this for 4 years now, is I have found a direct correlation between student loans and car loans. Students can really only make so much money in a 12-month period, especially if for 36 of the weeks of the year, they can only work part-time. And when you add on top of that a car payment and comprehensive car insurance and gas, that really tips the scale and it forces a lot of students, the majority of students, to then have to maximize their student loans in order to pay for everything. So one of the things we like to recommend parents do is, if at all possible, help the student understand that you don't have to have a car while at college. There is free public transportation in Cache Valley. You can go almost anywhere in the valley with the public transportation. There's Aggie Blue Bikes. You can actually check out a bicycle for free, kind of like you check out a book for the whole semester. Or you can help your student get a car paid for before they come. It's just having a car payment. That's what is really difficult for students, and the car insurance. And then lastly, at the end of each appointment, we'd like to talk with students about ways to stick to their system. We like to recommend the cash envelope system or multiple checking accounts with automated monthly transfers to help students really stick to a budget. All right, so there's a little QR code that you can scan if you'd like to help your student set up an appointment with us. And we welcome parents absolutely to join if that's fine with the student. We have in-person appointments and also Zoom appointments. So if you can't come up, you're welcome to join in. And we have a lot of appointments Monday through Friday, and we are year-round. So feel free to schedule an appointment with us, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you very much.